Hello and welcome to the Debrief. I'm Angus Scott. Liverpool's season is in transition, but you wouldn't notice it. How many clubs could announce the departure of their much-loved manager mid-season and still carry on as normal? A lot is going on behind the scenes, but on the pitch, they continue to impress. None of the joie de vivre of these men in red has waned since Jurgen Klopp announced this season will be his last at Anfield. So today we discuss all things Liverpool. Fabrizio Romano will be here shortly with the inside track on the Michael Edwards return and the Richard Hughes impending arrival. But first, as ever, Ben Jacobs, a little introduction to you. Hello.
How you doing? A very little introduction with no mention of the jumper.
I know. Old gold. You've definitely got that Wolves tinge about you today. Definitely. Good to have you here as ever, Ben, and delighted to say that joining us once again is the old Anfield favourite, Jason McAteer. Jason, how are you?
I'm good. I just want to touch on Ben's jumper. I like it. Very fashionable. Yeah, it's in fashion, that colour.
Yeah, okay. And you've just
got
plain white.
Jason, when I sort of move up and I come a bit closer and you realise it's actually Harry Potter and Hufflepuff.
Like it.
That's more like it. Dear. The question is, look, ultimately, Jason, look, this is the big farewell, and is the quad. It's a quad of sorts, and some people will say, well, it's not the real quad. It would still be a hell of an achievement to win all 4 trophies that they're in this year.
Absolutely. The Holy Grail. It's become a football, isn't it? The quadruple. And obviously Manchester City and Liverpool have gone close themselves. City last season, obviously doing the treble, which was a tremendous achievement, and going for it again. But Liverpool, as you said, maybe not quite the quad people would say, but certainly would be some achievement. And it's still very, very much alive. And the big worry, as you've mentioned in your build-up, in your introduction, was what were the ramifications of Jurgen Klopp's departure speech? What was it going to do to the team, to the squad, to results and performances? And the skeptics thought it might derail Liverpool somewhat and produce adverse results. Others claimed it would galvanise even more a squad which was on the right tracks, and that's certainly in the results and the performances seem to be what's happened. And
do you think that's what's happened? Do you think they're actually I'm not going to say they're better, because they've always been good, but it has actually galvanized them to almost feel like we're doing this for you?
Yeah, and it was a shock. It was an absolute shock, Jurgen's announcement. I'd fallen asleep. I was catching 40 winks as I'm getting older, Angus. That's what happens. A midday nap I was having, and I woke up to 30 or 40 texts, phone calls. My phone had gone red hot, and you think the worst, don't you? And then obviously you flick through, and it's Klopp. I've seen this Klopp, and then I made a phone call to someone inside the ropes, and I'll be honest, Angus, my first thought was there was an illness. That's what I thought. I thought Jurgen's not well, and you think negative, don't you? And that's what I did think. And I was assured by my contact within the club that everything was okay and Jurgen was fine. It was just a decision he's come to. He is literally ran out of steam. So yeah, I was worried what was going to happen and how things were going to play out. I was disappointed for the new players that had come in and done so well for him, that they only get him for one season. They sign with the image and looking forward to the future that they're going to play for a manager that they've signed for years to come, and then to find out it's only 9 months would have been disappointing for them. But they've responded unbelievably well, and results have certainly gone their way.
How do you keep that a secret, Jason? Because he'd informed Liverpool's hierarchy in November that he was leaving. We didn't learn about it until 2 months later. To me, that's testament to the club. It means people like me are doing a terrible job because we weren't able to find it out. But we live in a world of leaks, and virtually nothing is kept from the media. And yet somehow a Klopp bombshell stayed under wraps for 2 months. Is that a compliment to the way the club works and its culture?
Well, Liverpool, Ben, as you know, and you, Angus, have been around journalism forever. And, back in my day, I quickly noticed that things at Liverpool stayed a secret, and nothing got out. It was, they'd leak it if they needed to, but if they didn't need to, then it would stay very much in house. And as journalism evolved and football evolved, phones, networking, and everything, stories did eventually get out a lot easier. And you're right, testament to Liverpool to keep such a secret. But I think Jurgen would have gone straight to the top, to senior positions at FSG, and bypassed anyone senior at Liverpool. And I'm sure in saying that, it would have been Billy Hogan, Mike Gordon, and I'm sure John Henry and Tom Blair would have been the only boys in that office when Jurgen announced that that's what he was thinking. I don't think Jurgen would have gone in all guns blazing and sort of said straight away, I'm done at the end of the season. I think he would have approached the subject with more of, I'm thinking about doing this at the end of the season, and these are the reasons why. And I think the conversation would have gone along the lines of, listen, let's not make a decision now. Let's sit on it, for a couple of weeks, see how things develop, see how you feel. And let's, continue just the four of us, in the conversation, but let's keep it very much a secret. And like you said, testament to the guys in that room that nothing got out, because I know for a fact none of the staff knew.
It's interesting you say you were surprised, though, Jason, because I remember having a conversation with you, I can't remember how many years ago, about Jurgen, and you'd say, I wouldn't be surprised that actually one day he just goes, that's it, I'm done. That's his usual, par for the course. That's the way he's worked previously, and he'll just go off and go fishing because that's what he loves. That's his, his time out. Maybe because the success, there was so much success that you thought it would go on forever.
Yeah, the surprise came by the announcement. You don't wake up and from a 40-minute nap and the guy that you've watched develop your team for 8 years and bring so much success on a roller coaster ride to suddenly say, I'm quitting. That was the surprise. When it sinks in and you start, processing the announcement and what's happened and the enormity of it, you're right. I thought one day that would happen. When it comes, it's like, whoa, hold on a minute, I just need to process this. But you're right, it came, and I'm not surprised that it's happened. The nature of the game these days, is phenomenal. It's 24/7. There is no time off. You really don't get time off. And knowing Jurgen as little as I do, I know he enjoys travel. I know he enjoys his own spare time and his own free time, which comes in small amounts, and it's just literally burnout, and I can totally understand that. And plus, Jurgen's not in a position that Pep's in, as in Guardiola is in with Manchester City, where they can do things in somewhat a lot easier fashion than what Liverpool have to do. Liverpool have to rely on a tremendous amount of analysis, data, recruitment. They'd lost Michael Edwards. Mike Gordon was taking a step back. Jurgen was now, running the football club as more of a sporting director rather than focusing on the management of the first team. He was heavily reliant on his relationship with Alex Inglethorpe and bringing players out of the academy to fulfill positions that were now taken up by players on the treatment table. And, as much as you need a bit of luck, you've still got to invest in that. And that takes time and effort. And, the job was just becoming, more and more strained. Plus, off the back of last season, having to go again, recruit, spend money wisely, change slightly playing philosophy, formation, because you were getting found out. We've seen that with Trent's evolution, now moving into this inverted fullback. So there was a lot that went into it, and I'm not surprised that the tank was running on empty. So surprised by the announcement, and it never helps coming off the back of 40 winks. But I'm not surprised that it's come.
Ben, for you, look, and Jason's just hinted at it there, and I mentioned it in my intro. Mike Edwards is now back. It's not the role he was in before. He's been teased back in because it's a new, improved role with FSG. But how important do you think was that return of Mike Edwards, the changes going on, perhaps the timing of it because Jurgen Klopp is going, and as Jason's saying, his role was getting bigger. So now Mike Edwards fills the vision for FSG and brings in Richard Hughes as well from Bournemouth.
Well, they're calling it back to the future FSG sources anyway, and that's kind of what Liverpool have done. And it's a huge coup to get Michael Edwards to return. He said no originally, and then he got this new enhanced role, as you say. He's the CEO of football. So the role is actually an FSG one, and it's wider than just Liverpool. And part of the appeal, I'm told, is that Liverpool are going to be building a multi-club model, and Edwards is going to lead specifically on acquiring a club. I think they'll look in Europe rather than South America to begin with, but we'll have to wait and see. But he'll pick the club and he'll manage that club as well. And then because the role is more all-encompassing, Richard Hughes comes in and replaces Jorg, another change for Liverpool in January, but that was always a short-term sporting director. And Hughes and Edwards go way back, all the way back to when they crossed paths at Portsmouth. They've had a 20-year friendship. So it's 2-for-1 hire, and very important for Liverpool in many ways, because the strategy has always been one, settle the situation with the leadership and get a sporting director, then go out into the market and hire a replacement for Jurgen Klopp. And it's fine margins in many ways, because Edwards says no, and then you don't get Hughes in likelihood. Edwards says yes, you get Hughes. So option one, you sort it early, and by mid-March, you can now start interviewing for new managers and everything is stable. Or option two, you don't get Edwards, you don't get Hughes, you've still got to find a sporting director. And it wouldn't have surprised me under that scenario if they eventually decided Barry Hunter, Dave Fallows as a double act with the best people to take on the responsibility, because they're trusted. They're probably the best in the business, in my opinion, anyway, as a duo. And they maybe deserve some kind of enhanced powers, and they might get it in this multi-club model. So this is typical Liverpool for me, Jason, because every time they have a challenge of transition, we saw it with the midfield revamp, where they got hammered for, first of all, pulling out of Bellingham, then not getting Caicedo or Lavia. And what did they do instead? They signed someone like Endo out the blue that got criticised at the time. He's been brilliant. They got Gravenberch, a long-term target that, again, has slotted right in. Soboslai, they spent big money on. Alexis McAllister, they got for a steal. So everyone reacts to the panic. And then in hindsight, Liverpool always had a plan. And this feels the same at executive level to me anyway. People wondered, a lot of people are leaving. How are Liverpool going to deal with it? And once again, in hindsight, they appear to have shown us that they have a very clear plan.
I think it's about keeping the stability within the football club, and you've explained it really well, Ben. I totally agree with you. I think Michael Edwards was a massive part of that jigsaw that needed to come back and fit back in to the vision, philosophy, and strategy of FSG. You know, he was, along with Jurgen and Mike Gordon and FSG, you know, he was the brains behind and implementing that strategy, and done ever so well. You know, heavily involved in transfers, data analysis, as you were, and helped get the club to where they are. As far as bringing him back and Richard Hughes, the interesting bit for me in all that is their friendship, as you mentioned, goes back a long, long way. Richard Hughes was highly influential in bringing Iraola in, which Iraola coming to Bournemouth has the same agent as Xabi Alonso. So again, another part of the jigsaw is he deals with Alonso's agent, Iraola's agent, probably on a weekly basis. You know, the connection is there. Alonso is apparently the wanted target for Liverpool. It's an easy conversation. It's already, the networking is already there, that the relationship is already there. So that for me spells Alonso is in the firing line of certainly the number one target for Liverpool, and that relationship I certainly think will help in cementing that come Jurgen's departure in May. So yeah, having Michael Edwards back in that role is also interesting in the fact that I thought FSG with Jurgen leaving, it might wobble sort of the portfolio with the Penguins not doing well, the Red Sox not doing well, Liverpool now losing their talisman and their leader, might spell the end of FSG, who bought the club for about 300 million, you know, probably valued at 2.5-3 billion. It might just tempt them to kind of down tools and say, listen, thanks, the ride's been good, but we're opting out now too. I think bringing Joel Epstein back, Michael Edwards back in this role of now, like you've said, multi-club, which is a role Liverpool need to exploit. Listen, you can't stand still. You need to evolve We've seen many clubs involved in it. Manchester City being the best model out there. They're creating 100 million a season off the back of their 12, 13 club multi-club model. So Liverpool need to go down that road to exploit and create revenue. So there's no reason. But it also says to me that FSG and Liverpool are safe together. That marriage stays together now, and they move forward in a different way, but with the right people in place.
Very interesting. We'll come back to more of your thoughts in just a moment, Jason, and yours too, Ben. But a little bit earlier on, Ben caught up with our transfer guru, Fabrizio Romano, but started on the Michael Edwards return because it's fascinating what's going on behind the scenes at Liverpool.
Let's start with Liverpool and Michael Edwards. How did his return to FSG and Liverpool come about?
Yeah, that's a really important step, I think, for the club. It's just the beginning, because I think the most important part of the story is that obviously Michael Edwards will work for Liverpool, but also in the statement they confirmed that they're entering into the multi-club model, the multi-club business. So for FSG, it's a really important moment, and Michael Edwards will be crucial in building this process, and this was something really important to him. He wanted to try something different, so obviously the focus will be on Liverpool, but also on the future clubs to enter into this new galaxy for FSG. And so it's a really important one for Liverpool. I expect the next one to be the director working next to Michael Edwards, and so to be Richard Hughes, who is leaving Bournemouth at the end of the season, who has already agreed everything basically with Liverpool. He also had interest from Italian clubs, but his decision is very clear. He wants to join Liverpool. He wants to be part of this new project, and so I think they are going step by step into this new era for the club.
So Liverpool will now turn their attention to a new manager. Is it fair to say that Xabi Alonso is the favourite?
He's still the priority target. He's still the name they dream of. They know it's going to be a tough race with Bayern, because Bayern are still there, because Bayern want to push also thanks to the fact that they already have a board, a structure in place to attack the situation with Xabi Alonso. So Bayern can use that kind of factor, but obviously Liverpool want to try with their own cards to enter into this race. It's also important to mention that Liverpool and Bayern know they have to be respectful with Bayer Leverkusen and with Xabi himself. Bayer Leverkusen are experiencing a fantastic season, and they have no intention to negotiate now about the fee they want for Xabi Alonso to leave the club, and also Xabi himself wants to take some time. So I don't see that is something imminent, for example, in March. I think it will take some time before we know the future of Xabi Alonso, but I see Liverpool and Bayern still in the race to have Xabi Alonso.
Now, player-wise, a lot of talk about Mo Salah. Do you expect him to stay or go this summer?
Well, look, at the moment, the reality is that interest from Saudi was really strong last summer, and so the interest remains in terms of appreciating the player and considering the player perfect for the kind of project they have in Saudi Arabia. So the interest is still there. But at the same time, he's not, Mo Salah, negotiating with Saudi clubs now. So everything is absolutely quiet. Liverpool were really strong on their position at the end of last summer in saying no to every single proposal, also huge proposals, more than £100 million for Mo Salah. So I think it's going to be on the club to decide on players. You mentioned Salah, but there are many others like Van Dijk, who's also out of contract next year. To decide on these players' future is going to be important to present the new project. So with Michael Edwards, with Richard Hughes, but also with new manager, to understand what Liverpool really want to do for present and future, and then to have a conversation with these players. But at the moment, I don't have any message in terms of Mo Salah negotiating with other clubs.
If we talk a little bit more broadly, because I'm sure final determination over certain players is still being established, but what kind of positions will Liverpool look to strengthen ahead of next season?
I see Liverpool busy with probably a centre-back because there is a position where they can need something. Already in January, they were offered some opportunities. They considered that, but then they decided to wait for the summer transfer window to enter into the centre-backs market. So I think that position could be covered also based on what they will do with Matip, who is out of contract in the summer. Then I see them doing something in the offensive positions. Maybe it could be a winger or a striker. We have to see what they want to do with the new manager. But I see at least 2 signings for Liverpool in the summer transfer window. Let's see what's going to happen with midfielders, but they're quite happy with what they did last summer by signing many midfielders, and almost all of them have been really successful at Liverpool. So the focus is going to be on those positions, offensive player and probably a centre-back.
Okay, let's move on to Kylian Mbappe now. Some suggestions that Real Madrid won't let him play at the Paris Olympics. Could that cause some issues?
Yeah, it's not just about Kylian Mbappe. Real Madrid are simply worried about the Olympics, not because of the Olympics itself, but for what happened to other players in the past, like Pedri, for example. They're playing too many games. Real Madrid are advancing to the final stages also of the Champions League. There is going to be the Euros, so it's going to be a very busy year for all Real Madrid players. And so their intention is for French players in general. Obviously, for Kylian Mbappe, they have to wait to sign the contracts, but also for the other players like Eduardo Camavinga and the others, they don't want these players to go with the national team at the Olympics because they believe this could be dangerous for these players. Also because next season with the new Champions League format, it's going to be super busy for clubs, and same for the clubs World Cup next summer. So Real Madrid are quite worried for that, and that's why they don't want the French players to go to the Olympics with the French national team. Let's see what's going to happen. At the moment, it's still time to discuss with the federation, but for sure Real Madrid will fight for that.
PSG should have plenty of money to spend this summer, presuming that Mbappe does go as is expected. Anything, therefore, in suggestions that they're preparing a £75 million bid for Marcus Rashford?
No, I'm not aware of this bid, to be honest. I'm told the Paris Saint-Germain have not made any bid at this stage for Rashford or any other player. They will not be that aggressive on the market until they are still in the Champions League and obviously in the Ligue 1 to win titles this season. So they are really focused on the present. Obviously, the summer will be busy. So we will see PSG trying to sign at least 3 important players, could also be 4, based on the opportunities. Rashford is a player they appreciated 2 years ago when Mauricio Pochettino was the manager. Pochettino was driving that possibility of negotiating for Marcus Rashford, but then Man United, and especially Erik ten Hag, said no because they wanted to continue with Rashford, and I think Man United position remains very, very clear. They want to have Marcus Rashford as crucial part of their project, so for PSG, it should be an important proposal to change Manchester United's mind, but at the moment, again, I'm told they are not negotiating. They are not in talks, so I'm not aware of any official bid sent to Manchester United.
And what about Victor Osimhen at Napoli? Fair to say PSG are the favourites, or can we still not discount Chelsea?
Not yet, because at the moment they have not reached an agreement with Osimhen, and in that case it's really easy. There is no time to negotiate with Napoli and no need to negotiate with Napoli because there is a release clause into his contract. So any club who wants to sign Victor Osimhen has to agree with the player, and at the moment nothing has been agreed with the player yet for PSG or any other club. And also PSG have to decide their internal strategy on strikers. Last summer they spent important money, more than 160-70 million on Kolo Muani and Gonzalo Ramos, 2 center strikers. So it's on them now to decide whether they want to invest on a winger or they want to invest on a center striker like Victor Osimhen. So there are many important things to decide before attacking the situation. For sure, Osimhen is one of the players who is part of their those internal discussions. Luis Campos, the director of Paris Saint-Germain, is the man who signed Victor Osimhen at Lille. So that was a really important signing, and so there is a connection, but at the moment it's not something close, and I can't mention any favorites because we are not yet at that stage.
Well, Lille's Leny Yoro is another player that PSG have tried for in the past. Some reports say that Chelsea could enter the race. What are you hearing?
I think there will be many clubs in this race for Yoro because he's doing fantastic at Lille. So Paris Saint-Germain will be there for sure. They tried in every way to change Lille mind in the January transfer window, but Lille president Letang didn't have an intention to let him go. Chelsea appreciate the player in terms of scouting, but Chelsea have not started a concrete negotiation at the moment, while Paris Saint-Germain already started a negotiation in January for him. So they already entered into numbers and details of the contract. So PSG are on a different position now. But I still see Chelsea signing a centre-back in the summer. So Yoro is one of the players they appreciate, and let's see if they will start a negotiation. Let me add that from what I'm told, Real Madrid will also be there. Real Madrid are thinking about signing a new centre-back in the summer transfer window, and Yoro is one of the players that they really, really appreciate. They sent their scouts multiple times to follow him, and I think in this race to sign one of the best talents in his position in the world, Real Madrid will be there.
And a lot of talk about Bruno Guimaraes at Newcastle, who's also been linked with PSG, and Manchester City as well more lately. Now, given he's got a release clause, is a summer exit realistic?
Yeah, I think the exit is possible because the clause is there. I'm also sure that Newcastle will try their best to keep the player at the club, but interest is there from many clubs, really many. Paris Saint-Germain were there in January, but it was impossible to change the situation in the January transfer window. At the moment, I'm not aware of any concrete contact with Manchester City. Let's see if they will enter the race, but at the moment, they are not in talks to sign Bruno Guimaraes. So let's see, I think it's an open situation, one of Bruno, but when you have this kind of release clause for this kind of top player, I think it's always quite open situation. So the clause is there, the clause is valid this summer, and the clause is £100 million.
And a final word on two midfielders, Douglas Luiz at Aston Villa and Martin Zubimendi at Real Sociedad. What are Arsenal's chances of getting either?
Yeah, there are two players who are in Arsenal list since long time. So for sure they're there. For sure their players appreciated. And for sure Arsenal want to invest on a new midfielder. The big difference is that with Zubimendi there is a release clause. The clause is 60 million euros, but there is interest also from other clubs. I would include also Bayern in this race for Zubimendi, not only Arsenal. For Douglas Luiz also there are other clubs interested. So I think Arsenal are still in the process to decide who is their top target in the midfield. They're still not decided who is the player they really want. There are many midfielders on the market in the summer. There will be players like, we say, Douglas Luiz, Zubimendi, but also Varela from Porto is a player appreciated by many clubs around Europe. So I think they will still take some time to decide who is the player they want to sign. Last summer, they were very clear in that with Declan Rice. Now they're taking their time because they're happy with their midfielders, and then they will attack that market as soon as they know who is the player they really want.
Thanks, Fabrizio, as ever. Jason, you were at the League Cup final, so you've seen Liverpool put one trophy in the bag already, and how much of that youth coming through and what Jurgen has been able to do with a number of injuries do you feel is sort of going to be part of his legacy?
I touched on it before. The relationship Jurgen, especially after after Michael Edwards leaving. For me, I felt he all of a sudden became the sporting director. I know George came in and Jurgen's friend maybe to help out a little bit, but Jurgen's role very much at Liverpool for me, studying sporting directorship, he looked over all the departments a sporting director would do. Possibly there is a rumour that Jurgen's involvement in all the departments kind of pushed Michael Edwards out a little bit. That's what I'm hearing. I don't know how true it is, but I can understand it. Jurgen is very, very hands-on, but very much so in the academy department, where he shares a great relationship with Alex Inglethorpe, as you know, as academy director, and done a fantastic job. So the passageway has always been there for youth, and the opportunity for these younger players, if good enough, get an opportunity. I think the whole AXA training ground, moving from Melwood, where the kids now train, not alongside, but certainly in relationship to where the training grounds are, is alongside. They now get the opportunity to just step across the pitches and onto the first team training facilities. So having had that experience myself, not being detached from a first team is great for youth players, because you can actually see where you want to be. Like, you can see it's in touching distance. And it's great to watch the senior players train and how they handle themselves and how they do things. So I thought it was a good move for them to move that close together. Although my heart is always at Melwood, I do understand why the move was done. But in saying that, you still got to trust the process, and Jurgen certainly did that. And we've seen the likes of Trent, Curtis come through, but now we've got another batch, haven't we? With Clark, Kumas, Danns. The names are just rolling off the tongue now, and probably their development was never going to be this quick. They were always going to get the opportunity, but maybe in not such high-profile games, and that has become because of injuries and discipline and things like that have given these younger players the opportunity. But Jurgen has had to trust in them, and he's certainly done, and they've delivered. And for as much as they were brilliant against Chelsea, I still think Chelsea lost the game rather than Liverpool win it. For me, Chelsea should have just kicked into first gear when the kids come on. They should have bullied them, overpowered them, and that trophy should be in their cabinet. But it's all testament to Liverpool's ability to give these kids the opportunity, put the kids to knuckle down and show their worth, and they certainly did on that day. It was a very emotional day, Angus, to be in all honesty. I mean, we talk about the quadruple. There's no guarantee that Liverpool are going to feature in the cup final, the Europa League final, and certainly not win the league. But they were 90 minutes away at Wembley, and it was a very, very emotional day. It was like, this could be the only opportunity we celebrate Klopp. And when they were singing "You'll Never Walk Alone" at the end of the game, the hairs on my arms just stand up there. It was amazing, and everyone wanted to be a part of it. Everybody from the staff The players, you could see the investment the players had when they all ran onto the pitch. The injured players didn't look injured, did they? They were all hobbling down them stairs and jumping barriers and stuff. It was amazing. And then, the crowd, it was like a big thank you back. It was so emotional. And I'm just so happy that I was given the opportunity to be part of it. Yeah, it was a great day.
I think you're absolutely right. And everyone's talking about 4, but 1 trophy is difficult to win. You know that firsthand from 95-96 FA Cup final when Manchester United narrowly beat your Liverpool side. So for Klopp to get 1 in the bag, it's momentum building as they look to try and get 4. But if they only end up with 1, it will still be a very special achievement. And my question to you in relation to 95-96 is a slightly ridiculous one. And I'm in no position to be
we could be talking sartorial elegance here.
My perspective is this, and I accept I'm in no position to be offering fashion advice, but 95-96 FA Cup final, white suits. League Cup final, 2023-2024, grey tracksuits. It's not acceptable, is it, Jason, to turn up to a final in a tracksuit?
It's hard. Yeah, I mean, we've seen lots of things evolve in football, haven't we, in all different departments and different areas. Fashion has always been a contentious one. It's, back in the 90s. And again, it's a fascinating subject. You can delve right into it. You've got your totemic manager who is in charge of everything and, going back from his upbringing of, I read about it the other week, coming out the war to sergeant majors to, I played for a manager, Bruce Rayok, who you had to be clean shaven and you wore a suit. And, the phrase was look smart, play smart. And, it just goes back to that's the way of thinking. And then things evolve. You want your players more relaxed. So they start looking into the way that you dress. So now players on the continent are going in jeans and jumpers and V-necks and T-shirts. And, I remember Phil Babb being at Sporting Lisbon. He could go to a game in his jeans if he wanted to, or a nice pair of tailored shorts or a T-shirt or an open neck shirt, or, they could wear what they want. And it's just changed full circle. I mean, don't get me wrong, the white suits, I think we're all in agreement that it was a mistake. It was a mistake. And we're still talking about them today, Ben, aren't we? It was one of them things. But listen, a white suit does not win a football match. And, people argue. Alex went into the dressing room at Manchester United and said, if you can't beat this lot dressed like that, you need your heads banging. And maybe there's something in that team talk that inspired them. But I don't think so. The game, it wasn't a classic. It was 2 great teams that counted each other out. Bags of talent that never come to the fore, and it took a mistake from us and a bit of improvisation from Eric Cantona, to get the winner in the 84th minute or something. But it was never a white suit that lost the game for us. It was just one of them performances, one of them games, really, and it was disappointing. You're right, but yeah, you could write as I'm doing now, as I'm now entering into your world, your 2 of academia. Is it called academia?
Yeah, it's very good.
Words.
Yeah,
yes.
You can't spell it though.
Can I? No, can I? No, that's what Word's for, Angus, as I've told you off camera. I didn't even know what Word was until 2 months ago. So I'm now doing a lot of studying and trying to use big words in my interviews. But yeah, it's I've read lots of different stuff, and fashion. I'm sure I could do a 3,000 word essay on the evolution of fashion in the modern game.
Yeah, maybe. What's interesting is you've still got your white suit, haven't you?
I give it away.
Oh, you did?
And you know what? Yeah, I did, Angus. I swear, right, that suit is worth a fortune, and I want it back. Might pay for my course. Yeah, I give it to. And the truth be known, I went back to the hotel after the game, devastated, and I took the suit off and I put it back in the suit carrier, and I got home and I hung it up in my wardrobe, and it was never to be opened again until Soccer AM rang me, and I'd done their cup final weekend, and Helen Chamberlain said to me, "Can you bring the suit?" I said, "Helen, I don't even know where it is. I'll have a look." And I found it in my wardrobe, and I opened it, and it was the first time it had been opened since I put it away in the hotel from London from the cup final that night. It still had the flower in the top pocket, a blue flower. And I took it down to London to do the show. And after the show, she said to me, "What are you going to do with the suit?" And I went, "Do you know what, Helen? You can have it." And I give it to her, and she kept it. And then she lent it to Cammy to do a pitch-side report, and he put it on. That's how bad the suit was. It fitted Cammy. That's how ill-fitting that suit was. Cammy's about 6'3" and probably 4 stone heavier than me, and it fitted him like a glove. And I never. That was it. It never entered my head that it was such an iconic piece of history, of football history. And then I met her again at Cheltenham, funny enough, the COVID Cheltenham. And I said to her, "Have you still got the suit?" And she said, "Yeah." And I tentatively said to her, "Can I have it back?" And she said, "No." And I went, "Okay." So I think it's Helen's pension, to be honest. I think she's going to, yeah. But good luck to it. It's not something, no.
It was a bad day all in all, wasn't it, for Liverpool, and one of the worst finals that we ever saw. But anyway, let's put that to bed. Let's talk about titles this year and whether Liverpool can. Let's not worry about the quad at the moment. But what about the Premier League? That's the one that Jurgen would want probably more than anything else to finish on.
You can't. Ben spoke about it before. Fine margins. That's what it's going to come down to. Listen, I was a bit worried for the game at the weekend, the City game. I thought it was going to be a hurdle too far for Liverpool, and we were going to come unstuck. I felt our right side defensively. Listen, 4 out of the 5 were missing. Kanate had recently got injured. Trent was out. Robbo didn't start. Quavine was in goal. We were missing arguably the world's best keeper in Alisson. So I was very worried with the firepower and how City are applying themselves, which we know towards the end of the season, they're always strong. I was just worried for Liverpool defensively. And I was, come 90 minutes, I was disappointed that we hadn't won the game. I thought second half, we were outstanding. We were brilliant. The kids, again, played their part. They were amazing. And I was disappointed we only took a point from the game. But what it said to me was City aren't all that. City have got there's a frailty to City this season. We know that defensively, and Liverpool showed them up. And in saying that, I kind of questioned whether Liverpool can actually go on to win the league. And I said yes to myself. I thought, yeah, we've got everything to win this league. Maybe the Klopp factor leaving will help us. Maybe it'll get us over the line. In saying that, I always look for the team that has Lady Luck riding with them. And then you can talk about Arsenal, last-minute winners, Brentford, the unity that they have together. Again, coming through a penalty shootout against Porto, albeit in the Champions League, shows grit and determination and desire. There's a will and the experience. And sort of the heartache from last season will help them, that experience. And then you've got City, which you just don't know with City this season. You just don't know. You just don't know whether the Champions League will play a more important part for them. And they've all got tough games. Liverpool, arguably the easier running. City have got a big 3 weeks coming up. Arsenal as well, got a big 3 weeks coming up. And if I was a betting man, I don't know where I'd lay my bet. I really don't, Angus, to be honest.
You don't know? You're not sure who it will be? It's too close to call.
It really is too close to call. And it's brilliant. It's brilliant. We haven't seen one of these for a while. It's usually been a 2-horse race between Liverpool and City. Again, come down to fine margins. But it's gonna, you've got City with the recipe. You've got Arsenal with all the experience from last season. And you've got Liverpool's grit, determination, and the Klopp factor. And they're all very much in it for all different reasons. And it's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. And plus, they've got, the incentive of everything else to keep momentum with the Champions League. Liverpool's still in everything. City's still in everything. You've got Arsenal now, Champions League and the league. They've got players back to fitness. Liverpool are gradually getting them players back. City are only missing 1 or 2. Arsenal, again, missing 1 or 2. They've got squads to cope with. it's they're playing teams now. We were fighting for their lives, fighting for European places. It's just fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating, and the first one we've had for a while. That's sort of whet the appetite.
Yeah, absolutely, it's certainly going to be a good one to watch. Ben, I mean, we must close up very shortly, but your feelings on who's going to win the title?
Well, I don't think it will be Arsenal. I was muted there. Apologies.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because of a bit of breaking Liverpool news that we'll actually come on to in a moment. But I don't think it'll be Arsenal because of the run-in that they've got. And for me, when you have those kind of difficult fixtures that they've got, and it's the hardest of the three, they're going to drop more points. And the reality of this race is that it's 3-horse, and I don't see Liverpool or Manchester City stuttering significantly, which means that even one loss for Arsenal might make all of the difference. Of course, the only advantage that they've got is the goal difference, and they are in excellent form, but I don't think that they're going to get over the line. I think with Liverpool, it's a big boost to have some players like Mo Salah, for example, coming back. He scored in Europe in that victory over Sparta Prague, 20 plus goals in 7 straight seasons, the first player in Liverpool's entire history to do that. So momentum is with Liverpool, but quality is with Manchester City. And I think it is going to come down to the final day. The sentimentalist in me wants Liverpool to win it, but I feel like Manchester City and their quality and their experience and their depth might just sneak over the line. Key for Liverpool is really the early run-in into the middle of April for me. If they are going to win, I think they're going to have to stay as front runners. And that means ultimately getting something away at Manchester United, not losing away at Manchester United on, I think it's April the 7th. They've got a rearranged Merseyside derby. That's away from home as well. And they've got to go away at Aston Villa too. So Anfield for me, I don't know whether you agree, Jason, not so much of a problem because Klopp announcing he's leaving seems to somehow have made Anfield even stronger, and it was already a fortress. So home games for Liverpool against anyone, I'm not that concerned about, but it's those away trips, away in a Merseyside derby, away at Manchester United, away at Aston Villa. Lose even one of those 3 games and it might cost you the title by a point.
Yeah, I agree. That's the fine margins that you touched on before. It's going to be that slender. And on paper, Liverpool, Manchester United is always a massive game, isn't it? It's always, it sort of whets the appetite, doesn't it, for it to be a classic. But we've got to look at it where the two clubs are right now. I certainly think Liverpool are a class above Manchester United. They have their own problems. I don't really seeing it be a problem for Liverpool. One thing Liverpool have always been good at under Jurgen Klopp is treating each game with respect. They've never gone into anything thinking that they've got a divine right to take 3 points. They've always earned it. And that first and foremost is down to giving the opposition the respect and going out and starting the game in the right manner, in a professional manner, and getting the job done. I think Liverpool would treat them with the respect, but I think they'll take 6 points. I just hope that it's a game that you certainly don't think Liverpool should lose or drop points to, that we do, and we come to the end of the season and go, why did we drop 2 points to Burnley away? Like, why did we draw that game? I hope it doesn't come to that. But you're right, Ben. I mean, you've summed it again brilliantly with your analysis. You just can't rule City out again, can you? You just can't do it.
Ben, do you want to give that little bit of breaking Liverpool news?
Yeah. What have you got for us?
Yeah, come and tease us in.
Confirmed as we're recording at the moment that Jayden Danns, Jason, has signed a new long-term contract. It's obviously richly deserved. It's an investment in their youth. He's been at the club since he was 8. He made his senior debut against Luton in the Premier League only last month, and then he was part of the team that, of course, won the League Cup final. And maybe on a personal level, most notably, he also came on as a substitute in that FA Cup tie against Southampton and scored twice in front of the Klopp in the Klopp, I should say, in front of they might be naming, by the way, the Klopp at this rate if they win the quadruple. But he scored in that FA Cup tie in that 3-0 victory over Southampton as well. So richly deserved, Jason.
Absolutely. It's all right throwing them in at the deep end now and seeing how they develop. It's great for the learning curve and the progression of a young footballer. But you quickly come back down to earth when, everybody's fit and you find yourself fifth, sixth, seventh choice again. You've then got to go back and play for the 21s and the 23s and some of them for the 18s, on a soggy pitch on a Saturday morning with one man and his dog watching. It's not quite Anfield at full blast, is it? And, I think that's where you see the makeup of the younger players when they go back to that. And, is the desire still there? Are their feet firmly on the ground? What I like about the whole context of these younger players, you think of, Bobby Clark's dad's Lee Clark, Danns is, his dad played as well. And you've got that element thrown into it where they will keep their feet on the ground because of their dad's experience of being within the game. So that's good. And Alex, as I mentioned before, has been very good at managing players' expectations, young players' expectations, and where they are in their progression as well. So I'm sure that'll be fine. But yeah, listen, keep them on long-term contracts, get them out on loan, develop them as we've seen with all other players from Liverpool. I mean, it was Harvey Elliott who went on loan at Blackburn and come back a different player. He'd gone another level, even though he'd stepped down a division. He was tougher, he was bigger, he developed again. And then he's now finding himself in the first team, on a regular basis. So, yeah, it's brilliant for Liverpool. It's brilliant for Liverpool. And like I said, the pathway's always been there for younger players to come through. And if you're good enough, you will be given the opportunity. So fair play to the boys there.
Jason, just in sort of conclusion, a couple of things. Firstly, do you think Mo Salah will go? I mean, what an achievement. He has made 7 successive seasons of 20 plus goals in all competitions. But do you think this will be the last season of him?
Angus, we've always had these talisman, as the pair of we worried. I mean, the three of us, Angus, you might have been around, but certainly me and Ben were, when Kevin Keegan announced that he was gonna go. I don't know. You've got that fresh-faced look about you. I don't know were you there when Keegan announced he was going? Were you around?
I'm a lot older than you, so I remember it clearly.
Okay, well then you've had it with Dalglish, which we remember. Keegan goes, Dalglish comes in, and then from my time you've got Rushy goes, and then Robbie Oliver comes to the front, and then Robbie goes and Michael steps in. We've always had that player where, how do we replace this player? How do we get over this setback? What do we do? Even Suarez comes in. Michael Owen come in when Robbie went, and we're going to do the same with Mo Salah. He's going to leave the football club at some point because that's what happens. Whether it's sooner or later remains to be seen. I personally think he will go. Being in this part of the world, it just fits for other things that are going on across the water over there. They're still building. They're going to go again. They need someone.
Let's point out you are in Doha at the moment. You're in Qatar, so Saudi is not far. Yeah, for those that don't know, you're currently in the Middle East. So yes, the opportunity for him to go to Saudi seems pretty obvious. Yeah,
and being here, there's a lot. There's a lot more whispers you hear, and a lot more development going on here. And it's starting to. It's kind of funny when he said no in pre-season last season, beginning of this season. Once he'd said no, it all quietened down. But over the last probably 6 or 7 weeks, it started gathering speed again. And that's because, that's what happens at this stage of the season. People start speculating what's going to happen to players. And, Mo Salah's name has been heavily linked to a move to Saudi again. And, it fits. It makes sense. We cope really, really well with Mo Salah's injury and in going off. To play for his country, Egypt. We've shown that in the past as well, that we can cope without him. So it depends on the figures. It depends on the new manager, his philosophy, who he comes in. Maybe, there's talk of who they're going to replace Salah with now. It'll have to be spoken about because it might happen. It just might happen. I'm more on the side of a 60-40 split. It's going to happen right now, that we'll lose Salah in the summer. But Liverpool won't stand still. Liverpool will have a contingency plan. They'll have players eyed up who they want. Neto possibly from from Wolves would be a good replacement for me. But again, it would depend on the figures. I think Angus, he'd be entering his final year of his contract. If Liverpool are looking at taking 100 million for a player out of contract at the end of the following season, why not?
Finally, then, Jason, how many of the 4 will they win? They've won 1. How many more?
Oh, football, Angus, the Perrys have seen this, it throws up these funny conundrums, doesn't it? How many times do we see a player leave a football club and his next match is against the club he's just left? How many times do we see that? We see all these little things, permutations happening in football, don't we? Jurgen's never won the Europa League. And for me, I was there in his first season when he came. We lost the League Cup, but I was there in Switzerland when we lost the Europa League final to Sevilla. And in some ways, it was the building blocks to move forward. I was there for that gladiator Russell Crowe rousing speech in the hotel after the game, when it galvanized the team. And that's where, the building blocks were put in place for Liverpool to move forward as a team and as a squad and as a football club. And we built on that. And here we are now, looking back on a tremendous tenure of Jurgen Klopp. For me, it would be the one to go out on. It would be his last game. It would be in Dublin. So for my Irish heritage and blood, it would suit me. And it would just be the one he takes his cap off and says, there you go, I've won the lot. I've won the lot. And thank you very much. Good night. And the curtain closes. So I'm going to go, I'm not going to rule out the FA Cup, but if we didn't win it, okay. And the league, he's done it, but obviously I'd love to win it. But I'd like him to go out on the Europa League. I'm going to go, oh, you've put me on the spot, Angus, because if I go 2, that means we don't win the league. 3, I'm going to go 3.
Ben?
I'm going to go 3 as well, but a different 3. I don't think they'll win the league. Sorry, Liverpool fans. Man City to win the league. I think they'll win the FA Cup. They've already got the League Cup. And then I think they will win the Europa League final. Now, what I should say is we're recording this show before the draw for the Europa League quarterfinals, and the semi-finals are drawn as well. And if you are a storybook writer, and to add to Jason's script about donning the cap, wouldn't it be special, Jason, if the final was Liverpool against Leverkusen, in light of the fact by then it might be Xabi Alonso who could be moving over to Anfield? That would be the perfect ending, surely, wouldn't it? That Klopp ends Leverkusen's unbeaten record, wins the thing he's never won, and then shakes hands with the next Liverpool manager.
Absolutely, Ben. And we spoke just there, the top of my answer was football throws up these funny scenarios and these make-believe scenarios you don't ever think will come true. And then the footballing gods, they just deal a hand. And that's exactly what you just said, Ben. How fitting would that be? And if the football gods are looking down, then I'd take that scenario. That would be very, very nice.
Will be a great story. What a way to end. For me, it's a couple. They will win the Europa League. I think they're just, I think they'll blow the rest away, even though there's some really decent sides still in there. I think they'll win that. I think the league, sadly, is going to Man City. I don't actually want it to. I'd love Liverpool to go. I'm an emotional football fan as well. And I think you can have as many fairy tales as you want lumped on Anfield this year, and I wouldn't complain about any of them. So if you picked up on 4, that would be fantastic. I don't think it'll happen, but I think there'll be a couple, and the Europa League is definitely the one to go out on, and that just ticks every box for Jurgen Klopp. I think it'll be fantastic. Gents, thank you both very much indeed. Jason, as ever, it's lovely. It has,
emotional, Angus. I'm close to tears here. Flipping heck. I'm off to write another 6,000 word essay now, Ben. I'll be giving you a ring.
Jason Ryan, our producer, tells me we may be trying to do something to get the white suit back as well.
Okay. Well, you know where it is.
Power of social media. Watch out, Helen Chamberlain. We're coming.
We're coming for you, Helen.
Let's see if we can get it back for you. Hell's bells. We're coming. Alrighty, folks. Thanks very much indeed for your company. You've been listening to The Debrief. We'll be speaking to you again next week. Bye-bye.